Hello everyone, Shirley here. Most small government contractors want to grow their businesses by winning more federal contracts. If this were easy, there would be no setbacks, losses, or failures. Everyone would be winning and thriving. Growing a business in the federal sector is not easy. Today's discussion is about what founders must do to overcome obstacles, scale, and grow profitably in this incredibly complex, competitive, highly regulated federal market. Three perspectives will be represented today: strategic thinking, data-driven decision-making, and disciplined actions. I have two guests who will help me ferret out best practices in these three domains. Tara Rathore, CEO of Strategy for Real, and Mike Kalnasy, Chief Sales Officer at Cavu Advisors. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Shirley.
Nice to be here, Shirley and Tara.
It's such a pleasure to have you both here to share your perspectives and round out this important discussion. Please tell our audience a little about yourselves and your companies. Ladies first.
Strategy for Real is about taking strategy off the page and into action. And that's what I do. I advise CEOs, executives, and boards of established mid-sized organizations about the decisions and actions that they need to execute their strategies better and accelerate performance. I am their strategic partner both in developing strategy and addressing the myriad issues that arise along the way, like knowing when and how to scale up or down. My clients value that I help them pivot and see rapid results. I understand their business and guide them to take action, lead better, and achieve their objectives. Of course, it helps that I've sat where they sit today as an executive, founder, advisor. The nature of our work together, strategic advisory, coaching, consulting, always depends on where they are in their strategic journey.
Thank you, Tara. And Mike?
Cavu Advisors is a financial consulting and accounting outsourcing firm specializing in government contracting. We're experienced GovCon accounting specialists with the expertise and knowledge to leverage your company's assets and meet business goals. We focus on providing quality, timely accounting while remaining government compliant and monitoring your business metrics. Cavu was founded by a team of business owners that have experience in starting, growing, and adding value to businesses. We bring this real-world experience to our clients. Our motto is extreme visibility, as we make information visible for effective decision-making. Our deep breadth of knowledge covers federal agencies, including civilian, defense, and the intelligence community.
Thank you. Let's begin with strategic thinking. I start my engagements with my clients by examining their current business development practices, their existing contracts, and then exploring where the CEO wants to take the business. We then conduct market research to uncover future demand for their products and services and to identify gaps and opportunities. The most important element of this initial engagement is to develop strategies for growth. Where do they really fit in this $700 billion federal marketplace? What do they do better than others? And how do we position their companies to win profitable contracts and create market value? In my experience, most small GovCons have never gone through this process. They react rather than plan. But at some point, whether they like it or not, they will be faced with critical growth decisions. Tara, I think you referred to this as an inflection point. Is that right?
Yes. In math, an inflection point is a directional shift in a curve. In business, inflection occurs at the point of significant change, where the path forward is unlikely to resemble prior paths. It's a turning point. The more interdependent the circumstances, factors, things that are changing, the greater the complexity and the harder it is to identify the right course.
Why is understanding or recognizing or even anticipating an inflection point important for CEOs?
Well, an inflection point requires a new direction. By definition, it's a point of no return. There is no going back. Worse, going back often precludes the opportunity to learn and grow, which makes it harder to move forward. Inflection point can be both troubling and exciting. Recognizing one, or better yet, anticipating, puts the proverbial ball in a CEO's court. They have three options: go along for the ride, get left behind or fall off a cliff or miss it, or third, see it as an opportunity.
I love that. And Mike, I want to bring you into this discussion. You're a numbers guy. In what way does data inform strategic thinking, especially at this point of inflection?
So, Shirley, I think data is critical to making informed decisions. CEOs and C-suite executives need financial data readily available and up to date to make decisions on what comes next. Often I speak with prospective business owners who say they need to be able to make decisions that can support future growth, and they realize they need visibility into that data, but they aren't always making decisions they need to obtain that data, if that makes sense. Often they are using a basic accounting system like QuickBooks that cannot perform at the level necessary as an ERP system that mature government contracting organizations use. Also, there is no emphasis on the timeliness of financial data. I've heard horror stories of companies being almost a year behind in closing their financial data. You cannot make decisions for the future without having up-to-date financial data. We combine actual financial data layered with Outlook to predict and provide scenario planning for organizations. But think of the actuals like the frame of a car. You can't have a car that is roadworthy without the foundation. That's where the actual data comes in. And then Outlook data and assumptions become the key features of the car that make it a reliable vehicle for the journey ahead.
I love that analogy, Mike. I want to make our discussion more relatable to our audience by teeing up a hypothetical, though very typical scenario of a government contractor that we will call GovCo that has hit an inflection point. Let's say the company has been in business for 10 years, has $15 million in annual revenue. All of their contracts are subcontracts with one agency. A business partner with technical expertise and industry relationships has retired early due to illness, and the company uses QuickBooks. Let's say the founder has come to us for help. She wants to grow the business to $30 million and cash out within the next 3 years. She doesn't have a grip on the company's financial performance beyond basic financial statements. Doesn't have an executive team to delegate to, and there's no formal business development discipline. This is not at all unusual. Tara, how would you advise this CEO to find the opportunity in or extract value from this inflection point?
Well, first, you must take a hard look at her own business. For example, what part of the business is most vulnerable in this situation? And then how deep or broad is the impact on operation? Which of her business processes are most affected? How does this affect staff and their ability to get work done or move the business forward? And then include others, her team, key stakeholders, her board. Include them all in this conversation. Ask them the same questions. Their varied perspectives can add tremendous value and will keep the CEO grounded in reality.
Yes, and speaking of reality, Mike, let's assume in our hypothetical company that they don't have an approved accounting system.
Surely, to qualify for certain contract types, they're going to need an approved accounting system. But let's take a step back and understand why this is important. Not just for checking a box, but for effectively running and growing a company. Believe it or not, a lot of small business owners that I speak to, they look at this as kind of checking a box and they can just move on, but not really what the true benefit of having an approved accounting system is going to do for them. It is absolutely critical that government contractors perform proper segregation of costs and accumulate their costs by contract, not only for DCAA compliance, but also just for their own reporting. There are key decisions to be made when running a business by reviewing your project performance. Too often this is overlooked as companies get started, but it is critical to effectively managing your growth. Owners should review their project reporting and ask themselves, is this an acceptable gross margin on this project? How can we manage the resources or work share on this project to increase profitability? Those are things that can only be answered if you were doing proper job costing underneath of an approved accounting system.
I want to explore this a little bit more, Mike. To even qualify for a cost plus fixed fee award, don't you have to have an approved accounting system? If so, what does that entail?
Shirley, that is correct. But believe it or not, I've seen companies that were awarded CPFF contracts and were not audited until after they were performing on the contract, sometimes for up to a year. This is really concerning because if you're running QuickBooks for CPFF contracts, there's a lot of manual reporting and tracking that needs to be done outside of the system for projects and indirect rates. Companies who are performing on CPFF contracts who haven't had a DCAA audit yet or are thinking of bidding need to review the SF 1408 criteria from DCAA to see the areas of concern.
And once you get a CPFF contract, you have to submit annual reports to the government, right?
Correct. There are FAR clauses that trigger the requirements, and companies need to be prepared to have an annual provisional billing rate package, as well as an incurred cost submission completed. Too often I see that they are not prepared for this, and once the government asks at the deadline, they are left to scramble and complete a lot of work to get these packages submitted.
Which can be very time-consuming and expensive, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Incurred cost submissions require a lot of data to be pulled from the accounting system and presented in various schedules inside of a large workbook. If you have good records, this process can be easier, but if you have never done it before and have to do multiple years, it can certainly be more time-consuming. Provisional billing rate packages also require you to have a substantiated indirect rate budget built out. You'd be surprised how many companies I've spoken with that have to quickly build a budget to substantiate rates they used on a proposal rather than starting each Q4 with the budgeting process for the subsequent year. So they are ready to provide this backup for any proposal they're working on as part of a provisional billing rate package to DCAA.
Thank you for that explanation, Mike. We need to take a break. I'm talking to Tara Rethor, CEO of Strategy for Real, and Mike Kalnessy, Chief Sales Officer at Cavu Advisors. When we come back, we'll talk about discipline and being market-focused. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Shirley Collier, President and founder of Scale to Market, is your host for this Growth Masters Federal presentation. Scale to Market helps businesses think, plan, collaborate, and build market value by developing and executing customized data-driven business development playbooks, building efficient information systems, and creating high-performing BD teams. Utilizing the proprietary Davy Business Development Growth Framework, Scale to Market partners with business owners and executives to increase their company's value by achieving profitable and sustainable growth in the federal marketplace. Email Shirley at scollier@scaletomarket.com to learn more about the Davy Growth Framework and how it can be instrumental in helping grow your federal contracting business. Back now to Shirley's conversation with Mike Kalnessy and Tara Rethor as they discuss three perspectives on scalability.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about the importance of data and data-driven decisions. Our topic is about strategic thinking, data-driven decisions, and disciplined actions. I teach my clients how to instill discipline in their BD practices. It includes checklists, decision matrices, pipeline meeting agendas, workflows, and documenting their thinking and processes in a CRM. We are fortunate in the federal marketplace because there's so much public data about the government's past and future procurement activity. The key to success is analyzing the data and developing strategies about reality, not what you think or hope an agency will do. One of the recommendations I would have for GovCo, our hypothetical company, is to conduct market research to determine future demand for their products and services at other agencies and leverage their past performance and relationships to open up doors. So, Tara, I want to bring you back into the conversation here. How would you advise our hypothetical company, GovCo, to be more customer and market focused?
Well, of course, the data that you and Mike have been talking about is critically important to all of that. So once GovCo understands the impact of the inflection point on their own business, grounded in that data, they should take a look at their customers' businesses, the agencies. They can ask similar questions. So which customers or agencies' businesses are most vulnerable in this situation? And in what ways can GovCo reduce the impact on their operations, the customer's operations? What actions might GovCo take to help their customers so that they begin improving? And how might GovCo staff help the customer staff? All of this lets GovCo shape new opportunities or solve problems the agency, their customer, may not yet have fully recognized or determined to put out for bid. It helps GovCo shape the contract.
I love this, Tara. Thank you so much. This is an important point. The goal of all government contractors should be to become a trusted advisor to their government clients, not merely respond to public solicitations. I guarantee you that if you are not influencing and shaping future procurements, your competitors are. I want to come back to the topic of making data-driven decisions. Mike, what recommendations would you make to the CEO of our GovCo company regarding planning and budgeting for growth?
Well, Shirley, it may seem fairly simple at first, but some of the key reports we look at with clients are their trending income statement with a forecast layered on top, and even their balance sheet trend with a forecast layered on top. Believe it or not, a lot of people neglect to forecast out their balance sheet as well. Indirect rate forecasts, and accrual to cash conversion for cash basis taxpayers. And again, while this may seem simple or out of the box, when you layer on the forecast, it's actually very far from being simple or out of the box. Trending reports are available in most accounting systems. We know that, but they do not typically include a dynamic go-forward forecast. We work with clients on this so they can do what-if scenario planning and see quickly where they are headed beyond their current data. Executives also really need to key in on a balance sheet forecast, as I mentioned, because it is often neglected. It's critical to forecast out their cash needs, financial ratios, and other metrics. We're talking about winning new business, but do you think about the cash needs and the impact that will come to onboard and ramp up a contract? Some people aren't thinking in that manner. The indirect rate forecast is critical, adding in assumptions for what your outlook is so that you can see the rate impact and how you can leverage that information for future bidding. If I win this piece of business and bring in additional volume, are my rates lower? Can I use those lower rates to bid? Since GovCo is getting ready to cash out or sell in a matter of years, they also need to be prepared to have a contract waterfall report ready or a project waterfall report ready. This is a report that shows all the contract runway and profitability for potential investors. It is a critical report for investment bankers, and business owners need to be prepared to produce this report and answer any questions regarding its data. The selling company should know this report inside and out and be prepared to defend it during the due diligence process to a prospective buyer.
I love this conversation, and we're going to be talking about cashing out and selling here in just a minute. I want to talk about return on investment just quickly. I find that many small GovCons do not measure the return on investment of their business development efforts. It's almost as if they don't really want to know how much they're spending on business development. But I use a balanced scorecard methodology and encourage my clients to measure such things as compounded annual growth rate of revenue and profits per customer, taking into consideration direct and indirect costs, their recompete rate, P-win, capture rate, new versus repeat revenue, etc. Are these factors that you take into consideration as well, Mike?
Absolutely, Shirley. And I think those are important areas for owners to focus on as they measure ROI. In the same vein of this discussion, I find some owners who look at growth are so focused on top-line revenue that they ignore the gross margin and other indicators of maybe a less than ideal opportunity to go after. We have had several clients that we've worked with where we have shown how a smaller piece of business at higher margin is more valuable to their business than a larger revenue opportunity with low margins or an LPTA opportunity. I also think these things need to be factored in when considering any sort of comp plan for business development professionals, like you mentioned.
Absolutely. Creating market value by winning profitable contracts should always be the goal. Whether the shareholders want to sell, form an ESOP, or have their children take over the business, whatever the scenario is. Tara, how would you advise our company, GovCo, to ensure that they are creating market value so they have an option, if they should choose to sell?
Oh gosh, Shirley, we could devote an entire episode to addressing that single question.
Yes, we could.
Well, at a high level and thinking strategically about it, I'd suggest two things. First, define success. What does GovCo hope to achieve via the sale? What role do you as CEO want to play in the transition or that future company? And what about your staff? The second is to assess the value drivers. And these are the value drivers that are tied specifically to your particular business. Then consider, what is your ideal buyer looking for? How well positioned is the business right now? Get real about it. Use the data that you and Mike are talking about. Get an independent view. And then prioritize the investment in shoring up those weaker, high-value areas. Again, like we said earlier, sometimes these things sound simple or obvious, and yet we all know it really isn't.
It's not simple, obvious, or easy. So thank you for bringing that into the discussion, Tara. Mike, you also mentioned that if you plan to sell one day, that you will want to have a more sophisticated accounting system. Why is that necessary?
A lot of it is business maturity and rolls into our prior discussion on proper project reporting. When a business goes to sell, they want to have the information visible at their fingertips and ready to provide. Oftentimes we see the QuickBooks data can become messy because it doesn't have the necessary guardrails for government contractors. A more sophisticated system lends itself to encouraging more mature processes and reporting so that a business owner can work through the sale process smoother. And to Tara's point just a moment ago, what is the ideal buyer looking for? They are looking for people who have a sophisticated accounting system and have their records and data in good order.
Yes, and I can attest to that personally, having gone through the process a couple of times myself. I sometimes see small businesses who desire to sell one day purposefully underinvest in their operations, including accounting, in a desire to boost their EBITDA, but it actually hurts them because they don't have the management information they need to make informed decisions, and they are then, as you've mentioned, they're perceived as a company that is not well run. Have you seen this, Mike?
Absolutely, we have run into this. I think we are slowly seeing more business owners open to the idea of outsourcing functions such as accounting and investing in their infrastructure. But to your point, it is critical to have reporting ready and at your fingertips for the day you do decide to sell. Having your financial back office in order is critical before you step into this process, and any investment banker will tell you that. I always find that the business owners who admit what they don't know or do well and bring in the experts to support those functions fare the best in terms of growing and one day reaching their long-term goals.
Yep, I've seen that as well. Many CEOs of small GovCons are so busy, they frequently wait until something breaks or happens negatively before they act. They've had a turnover, or being audited, or they have unreliable data and can't make good executive decisions, or like our simple company, GovCo, they're facing many tough decisions. Tara, I know that your philosophy is that CEOs should always be thinking and acting strategically on a daily basis. So how do you get them out of the weeds?
Ideally, of course, you want to be prepared before facing the inflection point. This means that CEOs need to spend time working on the business rather than in the business. Mike's advice speaks directly to ensuring your back office operations are up to the task of growth in any environment. An inflection point or any significant crisis often reveals the cracks in your foundation, in the back office and in the front office. These are the things that you thought you could deal with later when things calm down, so to speak. Once you've thoroughly understood those cracks, your vulnerabilities are the things most impacted by the inflection point if you're facing one, take action. Don't wait for the crisis or inflection to pass, or worse, for a new one to arrive. 3 things. Redeploy your resources to reduce those vulnerabilities and focus on your strengths. Narrow your offer to what you do best, and systematically avoid all areas outside of what you do best. This kind of focused, strategic attention, working on the business, this will position the company for sustainable growth.
Really good advice. Mike, what is your advice about when to address these issues?
Shirley, once the owner understands what direction they are headed and the key milestones coming ahead, they need to align themselves with partners that can guide them and prepare them for the process ahead. If GovCo is preparing to sell in 3 years and currently has data issues, they likely need to have an overhaul of their accounting to include software, support team, etc. Once you're producing timely financial data and able to produce a reasonable forecast, the owner can then have the data to make decisions on the next steps for the business to reach its goal of selling in 3 years. I've heard former business owners many times say when they were at that point, that inflection point Tara's talking about of I'm ready to sell or I'm going to sell, every decision they make, that is kept in the back of their mind. Is this helping to reach that overall goal? And believe it or not, these things can be accomplished in a reasonable time frame if you are committed and willing to invest in the changes necessary. It may seem like an obvious response, but you can't plan for next steps until you have clarity on your current and forecasted financial data. Get that addressed first as step 1, and then you can develop the subsequent steps that need to be taken.
I agree. I want to summarize what we've been discussing today. Growing a business in the federal sector is not easy. GovCon CEOs face the challenge of understanding a very complex, highly competitive, and regulated marketplace and positioning their companies to win contracts now and in the future. And if they want to grow, thinking and acting strategically every day is essential. Many plates are spinning simultaneously: business development, service and product delivery, accounting, contract management, hiring and keeping good people, and managing all of the internal and external risks associated with building a successful business in this unique, opportunity-rich marketplace. Tara and Mike, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with our audience today.
Thank you so much, Shirley and Tara. It was a pleasure being here and talking with you both.
Mike, Shirley, so fun. Love talking to you both and helping GovCon CEOs to scale and manage their growth better.
Folks, if you want to get in touch with Tara, contact her through her website, Strategy for Real, with the number 4 in the middle, or email Tara at trethore, TRETHORE, at strategyforreal.com. Mike can be reached at Mike Kalnasy, MKALNASY, at cavuadvisors.com. Or you can reach out to us here at Scale to Market, and we'll make sure you're connected. This is Shirley Collier, President of Scale to Market and host of the Growth Masters Federal Podcast, signing off for now. As we close, I want to thank you for joining us today and encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn and visit our website. That's scale2market.com with the number 2 in the middle, where you will find a link to our webcast, which now include open captioning for those seeking more clarity in the narrative, along with our podcast, white papers, my blog, and other links and resources. While there, please leave us a comment or suggestion so we can stay focused on what's important to you. We'll see you next time.